All right, so if you've ever sent any crypto, you've probably been there, right? You're staring at the transaction fee and just thinking, wait, where is this money actually going? And why is it so high today, but was different yesterday? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down. We're going to demystify the whole world of crypto fees, help you get a handle on your costs, and really see what's going on behind the curtain. So let's follow the money.
So here's the game plan for today. First, we'll look at the different types of fees you'll run into. Then, we'll get into the why behind network fees. That's the big one. After that, we'll cover some real strategies you can use to manage costs. We'll also touch on a cool innovation called SegWit. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about the bigger picture and why all this stuff really matters.
Okay, let's dive right in. Understanding fee types. So what are you actually paying for when you hit send?
You know, when you look at it, the costs usually fall into one of three main buckets. You've got your exchange fees, then your network fees, and sometimes you might see some wallet fees. Let's take a closer look at each one.
Okay, first up, exchange fees. Now this one is probably the easiest to wrap your head around. Think about it. Exchanges are businesses, right? They build and maintain these huge platforms so you can trade, buy, and sell. So for providing that service, they take a little slice of the pie. It's basically how they keep the lights on and make a profit.
And these fees come in a couple of different flavors. You've got the simple fixed fee model. A good example is Bittrex. They just charge a flat 0.25% whether you're buying or selling. Pretty straightforward. But then you have the maker-taker model. This one's a little more clever. It's designed to encourage people to add orders to the books. So the maker, the person who creates a new order, gets a discount on their fee, while the taker, who comes along and fills that order, pays a bit more.
All right, next up we have network fees. And, okay, this is where things get really interesting, maybe a little more complex. See, this fee doesn't go to some company in an office building. No way. This money goes directly to the miners, the people all over the world running powerful computers that verify every single transaction and keep the whole blockchain secure. This is literally the price of admission for using the network.
And rounding out our trio, we've got wallet fees. Now, a lot of wallets are totally free to use, which is awesome, but some do charge small fees, maybe for using their app or for a special feature. Really, it's just a way to help fund the team that's building and updating the software that keeps your crypto safe.
Okay, let's circle back and go a little deeper on those network fees. Because honestly, this is the one that's the most dynamic and, frankly, the most confusing for a lot of people. To really get what's going on, we have to follow a single transaction, step by step, on its journey to getting confirmed.
So you hit send in your wallet. What happens next? Well, first, you authorize it. But your transaction doesn't just, poof, appear on the other side. Instead, it gets tossed into this massive digital waiting room, this pool of unconfirmed transactions. Now, imagine miners looking at this huge pool. They grab a bunch of these transactions and bundle them together into a new block. Then, the race is on. They all compete to solve this incredibly hard math problem tied to that block. The first miner to crack it gets to broadcast the solution, the proof of work, to the entire network. All the other miners quickly check the work, and if it's all good, bam, the block gets added to the blockchain forever. And your transaction? It's officially confirmed.
So, here's the million-dollar question, right? With thousands of transactions sitting in that pool, how on earth do miners decide which ones to pick? Well, it all comes down to simple economics. They're going to prioritize the transactions that have the highest fees attached. Why? Because that fee goes directly to them as a reward. It's just more profitable for them to do it that way.
And this creates a really clear trade-off for you, the user. Think of it like this. Paying a higher fee is like buying a VIP pass. You get to skip the line. Your transaction gets high priority, and it gets confirmed fast. On the flip side, if you choose a lower fee, you're basically telling the network, hey, I'm in no rush. Your transaction will get a lower priority, and it's just going to have to wait its turn.
Okay, so now that we understand the why, let's get into the how. How can you actually use this knowledge to your advantage? This is all about practical strategies for managing your costs. Because once you know how the system works, you have way more control than you think.
So the good news is, most modern wallets actually let you call the shots here. You can usually go into the settings and set your own fee preference. It really boils down to a simple choice: time versus money. If your transaction isn't urgent, hey, save a few bucks and choose a lower fee. Just, you gotta be patient. But if you need that thing to go through right now, you'll want to bump up the fee to make sure it gets processed quickly. And here's a pro tip. Always keep an eye on how congested the network is. When everyone's trying to make transactions at once, fees just naturally shoot up because everyone's competing for that same limited space.
Now, this whole competition for block space, it's a huge challenge.
And it's exactly why brilliant developers are constantly working on ways to make things better. And one of the biggest innovations to tackle this problem is something called segregated witness, or as most people call it, SegWit.
Okay, I know the name sounds super technical, but the core idea is actually really clever. Segregated just means to separate something. And witness, well, that's just a fancy word for the digital signature on a transaction. So SegWit literally just separates the signature from the rest of the transaction data. And you might be asking, okay, but why on earth would you do that? Well, it's all about making things more efficient. See, in a normal transaction block, that signature data takes up a surprising amount of space. By taking that data and just moving it to the side into a separate part of the block, SegWit magically frees up a bunch of room. The result is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You get to cram more transactions into the exact same block size. And what does more capacity mean? Less congestion and hopefully lower fees for all of us.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've been down in the weeds talking about mechanics and tech solutions, but why does any of this really matter? Why should we care about transaction costs? Well, it turns out the cost of a transaction has massive implications for the entire future of crypto.
Here's the biggest issue, really. High network fees start to price small transactions right out of the market. I mean, think about it. If the network fee is $5, you're just not going to use crypto to buy a $3 cup of coffee. It makes no sense. And that's a huge roadblock. If crypto is ever going to be used for everyday purchases, this cost problem absolutely has to be solved.
And that really leaves us with a fundamental question for the future, doesn't it? If costs keep going up, who really gets to access this technology? It creates a system where the network is easy to use for big players moving large amounts, but it becomes a major barrier for the little guy. So when we talk about fees and scaling, we're not just talking about technology, we're really talking about what kind of future we're building and who gets to be a part of it.
And that's about all the time we have for today. I really hope this breakdown of crypto fees was helpful and gave you some clarity. If you found it useful, do us a huge favor and hit that like button, share it with a friend, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss what we've got coming up next. Thanks so much for tuning in.